Welcome and good morning, everyone. This is the launch of the Barbados Museum's 90th year anniversary lecture series. Not that we've had a lecture series for the past 90 years, but this is a lecture series celebrating our 90 years, our stories, our museum. My task this morning is quite simple. It's simply to introduce the lecture series and hand over to our presenters. But I'm looking forward to seeing you join us on what should be a most insightful and thought-provoking review of the museum's contribution to culture, heritage, and lecture series presenters to really discuss that in depth, but simply saying welcome, look forward to having you join us on our journey as we explore the last 90 years of our stories, our museum. And good morning, everyone. At this stage, I'll hand over remarks to the President of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, Sir Trevor Carmichael.
It's actually supposed to be Professor Welch. Professor Welch, please go ahead.
Yes, just let me say very quickly that we are here today, and the Deputy Director of the museum, colleague Kevin Farmer, has already given you some welcome remarks. Very shortly, we'll have Sir Trevor Carmichael, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview of the lecture series and also say a few things about this special anniversary. As you're probably aware, the lecture series is entitled Our Stories, Our Museum, 90 Years in the Making, the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. The use of our museum, our society, our story, is really intended to make it clear that the museum is very much a part of this society, is a partner in this society. And in that context, this lecture series will further help to integrate the museum with its host community. So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure in deputizing for the chairman of our publications committee, Dr. Henderson Carter, to introduce some pertinent facts on our lecture series. You've just got the title of the lecture series, Our Stories, Our Museum, 90 Years in the Making. And this lecture series is intended to provide to a discerning public some reflections on the past 90 years. So far of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society's existence. In particular, as the current editor of the journal, I note that I stand at the end of that 90 years period with a privileged vantage point. That is, in considering my part in the editing of the journal over the last 7 years or so, I've been able to view with the eyes of the historian the historical trajectory of this Barbados Museum and Historical Society. Strictly speaking, a museum in Barbados was envisioned by an act of 1847. And if that legal enactment had been followed through with an immediate action, we would have been celebrating the 176th anniversary instead of the 90th. As it is, the act of incorporation of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society, coming as it did on May the 31st, 1933, and the pre and subsequent action of the illustrious founders made the establishment of the museum in the current location a reality. We are therefore celebrating the 90th anniversary of that physical founding. The lecture series that we launched today represents therefore a series of reflections that it is hoped will further cement the reality of this august institution in the minds of the Barbadian public. And so we outlined the upcoming series as follows. On April the 26th, 2023, we expect to have a lecture by Sir Woodville Marshall, a lecture that is entitled Making a National Museum. Sir Woodville, of course, is an illustrious, close associate of the museum over many, many years. He's a social historian of the Caribbean, and he taught for 38 years at two universities, Ibadan in Nigeria and the UWI, both at the Mona campus and the Cape Town campus. He retired as a professor in the year 2000 and has been principally involved in research of this on the small communities, sharecroppers, villages, and peasantries, and has published on these topics. He has been a member of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society since 1972 and served on its council until 2018. In fact, at one time, he served as the deputy president of this institution. So this lecture that is coming by Sir Woodville promises to be a particularly important one as it looks closely at the question of the nationalization of the museum. The second lecture, coming on May the 4th, 2023, by Sir Trevor Carmichael, President of the Council. It's entitled Guidance and Governance, the Museum as a Function of its Society. Of course, Sir Trevor Carmichael needs no particular introduction. He is well known not only in the legal fraternity, but certainly in Barbados as one of its more illustrious citizens. On many occasions when we've had invitations to matters related to the museum, you will have heard Sir Trevor Carmichael speaking. This erudite gentleman loves his museum. And I am absolutely certain that that lecture by Sir Trevor Carmichael will be a must attend, must listen to, must connect with event. This is a very important event in the calendar. The third lecture is by Mr. Kevin Farmer, Deputy Director of the museum. And I wish to say that of Kevin, that Kevin has been particularly active also in the area of archaeology. I know Trevor and in his time at the University of the West Indies. He has a very close connection with our university. But here at the museum, he is one of the faces and voices that is known to the public. And therefore, I expect again his lecture entitled Guardians of Our Heritage, the Museum as a Center for Cultural Resource Management will be timely and well placed in this series of lectures. Also, coming on May the 17th, 2023, is a lecture by yours truly. I am going to be presenting on the documenting of our national history, the Journal of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. And I wish to again repeat that as the current editor of the journal and one who has spent some time looking at its fare, that I feel privileged in being asked to deliver this lecture. It will certainly provide for the public some insights into what we call the historical evolution of the journal from its founding, from its first articles in 1933, right up to the present time. Following that, the next lecture, that's on May 24th, 2023, will be by Ms. Natalie McGuire Batson, who is, I understand, a curator with special responsibility for social history and community integration. She will be delivering a lecture which is entitled Centering Community-Led Curatorial Practices at the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. I know of Natalie's work personally because she has published previously in the journal itself, and brings to the Museum and Historical Society special insights of a community-based practitioner, someone who understands quite well the whole question of the delivery of our cultural heritage. Then following Ms. Natalie McGrath-Batson, we have a lecture on May the 31st, 2023 by Ms. Alessandra Cummings, who is the director of the museum, well known not only in local circles, but also internationally. The organization that really is what I call the epicenter of museum and archival discussion and development across the world, ICOMOS. She has been very closely associated with that. If my memory is correct, I think she served as one of the directors of ICOMOS at one time. Ms. Alexandra Cummings is also well known in the field of art, of discussions on the art of not only of Barbados, but of the wider Caribbean. Her lecture, which is entitled Origins of a Museum in the Island of Barbados, will take us through the historical, again, evolution of the museum itself. While I'll be dealing more specifically with the question of the journal, she'll be dealing with the question of the museum, and she's well placed as long-standing director of the museum to share with the discerning public the important factors in the historical origins of the museum in this island of Barbados. So without any further ado, let me again welcome you, and on behalf of the director, the chairman of the committee on publications, Dr. Henderson Carter. He's unable to be with us today because he's a bit under the weather, but I'm certain he will want me to say to you that he welcomes your presence, and we're looking forward to your connection with the lecture series when it begins very shortly on April the 26th. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. And let me say what a pleasure it is to be able to address the audience. I am still relatively, like most of us, new to this Zoom technology and Teams technology. And I still have an eerie feeling when I'm speaking into a mechanical device. The good part about it, though, is that I see, for those who are showing their screens, like my good friend and colleague, Professor Emeritus Pedro Welch, I do see his smiling face, and that gives us a little sense of comfort. Let me also thank him for the very kind words he said in introducing me and introducing the topic, which I will give in another couple of weeks. But this morning, it is really my pleasant duty and desire to place a few remarks at this launch of what we could say is a soon to be delivered successive weeks during the Barbadian spring of excellent discourses within this series. Let me say that the lecture series has always played an important role in the museum's ongoing function of education, outreach, and overall cultural appreciation. An objective geared for all Barbadians and visitors. And I say visitors because some of our temporary long-stay visitors are known in the past to have extended their stay so as to enjoy the benefits of the lecture series. And some have actually also, some of these shorter term visitors have, and not many, but some significant enough, have geared their visits to Barbados so as to be part of the lecture series and to hear, in a nutshell, a lot of important information and sensitization about Barbados. Some 15 years ago, the museum celebrated its 75th anniversary. That was in 2008. And we were fortunate to host a lecture series at that time as well. And it commemorated that 75-year milestone. Now, on that occasion, I was tasked, and indeed I was also humbled, to deliver one of the lectures in that series. I think it was the inaugural one. And I framed my opening salvo by way of an explanation of the title, given to that evening's lecture. And I'm going to quote from that lecture, which I gave. I have taken the liberty of formulating my remarks in the context of the museum's taking on its mantle in 1933. The choice of so naming the topic was guided by a wish to place the introduction of a museum to Barbados and to Barbadian life within the important substantive question of why do museums exist and what roles do they play? Or in the language of systems theory, what is the structure and function of museums? Even more poignantly, and more poignantly germane to our own specific inquiry, is indeed the immediate question as to whether there is a special or distinct character which is assumed by a museum in a colonial and immediately post-colonial society. While I essayed to give some answers on that occasion to that challenge, may I suggest that it is one for the museum, not only then in the 75th year, but as an ongoing one, including one in this 90th year, and one during this particular series, which we launch today. For me, and I'm sure for many, the lecture series will stimulate interest in the evolving role that the museum continues to play in the Barbadian experiment. I sincerely hope that it will be an enjoyable and informative series, which gives answers to some of those questions which I posed 15 years ago and which are posed again today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sir Trevor. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kay Hall. I'm the Education and Community Outreach Officer at the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. I'd like to thank everyone for attending today to help us celebrate as we launch the lecture series, which heralds in, as it were, our 90th anniversary. And I really do hope that people will join and really take the opportunity to learn how the museum became such an integral part of the Barbadian society that it services. We'd like, of course, to thank the University of the West Indies for their continuing support with the series, and also make a special thank you to the media who have attended the launch today. And of course, to our speakers and our chairpersons for the upcoming lecture series. Thank everyone very much and have a great day.